they're talking about going to the Tour de France within 5 years.
Press release also said by 2032. That is 7 years away.
7 years, you say? 7. Conspiracy.
Welcome back to the Spin Cycle Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fretz, and today on the show, French cycling is a modern misadventure, as is George Hincapie's new team, and a Danish rider just got popped for doing his homework. I feel like the other one we should maybe throw in there is that we have to go find a new French horn dog, but we'll get to that later. Let's get into it. Johnny Long, welcome back to the show.
I just got that. I just had to use the Google Translate in my brain from American to English.
That was actually straight from Ian. So from Australian to English.
That somehow makes it more gross, but I don't want to think about that just yet.
Also on the show, Dane Cash, welcome back.
Hey, everybody. How we doing?
Good. Fellas, we are just over a week away, 8 days away from the Tour de France starting in Lille. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the Tour, frankly, today. This is like the sort of funky, slow week in between Suisse and the Tour stuff happening, press conferences, etc. next week. We got plenty to talk about, nonetheless. Next week, Monday, is going to be the massive Tour de France preview. I have many opinions about this Tour route. I think it might be on paper one of my favorite Tour routes of like the last decade. I've dug into it. Oh yeah. I've dug into it quite extensively, mostly because I had to book all the hotels, so therefore I have to see where everything starts and finishes. And I really like it, particularly the first 10 days, which may sound surprising to you because there's no mountains really anywhere in there, but it's going to be really good. Anyway, that's just a bit of a tease. We'll get to the full preview on Monday's show. We want to start today with the French. So related, I suppose. And the fact that the French are, it's weird. It's just simultaneously having some measure of success in the last couple of years, particularly at the Tour. I mean, think back to last year's Tour start, right? We had two French winners in 2 days at the start of last year's Tour de France. And yet, sponsors are dropping all over the place. And the sort of like structural integrity of French cycling seems to be very much crumbling, I would say. Johnny, can you give me an update on the sponsor issues? Because that's really what underpins most of this conversation.
I'll run through this quick. Arkea B&B Hotels, both Arkea and B&B Hotels are leaving at the end of this season. There's rumoured for a while, it's now been confirmed by the team. They are Emmanuel Hubert, who everyone is going to meet in the Unchained series right at the start, is out pounding the pavements, trying to find some businesses to keep the team going. Unclear how successful that will be. Seems like if you're going to go sponsor a French team at the minute, you would go and sponsor Decathlon Asia Tour Le Mondial, which the likes of L'Oreal have gone and done. So I guess to give the other side of this news, Decathlon and L'Oreal, as they will be, seem to be going from such strength to strength. You then have Total Energies, who L'Equipe wrote today. Total Energies have been confirmed to be sponsoring or be on Ineos's kit from the Tour de France this summer as they move into sponsoring Ineos. And it's been confirmed by L'Equipe that Total Energies will continue to support the French team for 2026 as well. But it didn't say anything more than that. So it seems like they're giving them one more year. And then I guess they have to figure out what to do as well. And that's particularly galling because they're not leaving the sport entirely. They've decided they'd rather spend their money with Ineos because of the links between Total Energies and Ineos. And Total Energies will weirdly become a sponsor at the Tour de France as well. So they're just going big on the Tour. I don't know what they've discovered about advertising at the Tour in cycling. Maybe the new marketing guy's a huge cycling fan. So it's all a bit up in the air. Everything is going a bit sideways for a few squads.
The idea of already having a team and then just sort of deciding, you know what, maybe we kind of want to do something a little bit different. I feel like that hurts so much worse.
It's like moving on to another romantic partner.
Yeah.
With your current one, and then just I don't know, walking down the street with both of them. I don't know. Seems not right. Seems mean.
So, Total Energies is of the brands that are involved in French cycling or cycling generally, it's one of the larger companies.
Yeah.
Like it's an oil company. Revenue last year was 2023 revenue, $237 billion US.
Yeah, and that's even after they stopped selling natural gas to the Russians, which I think they were doing long into the Ukraine war. So don't be fooled by the lovely multicolored typeface that adorns the kits. They are also kind of bad guys.
If they do like continue, because they've not had, let's just say they haven't had a great stretch here, Total Energies. But if they continue to not succeed, it is nice to know that they can pull that lever and start selling.
If they continue to not succeed is a really interesting, kind way to say that.
Yeah,
what lever are they pulling?
To be pretty bad.
They've
it's nice to know that they
teams for like 6 years now.
But all they need to do is start selling that natural gas to the Russians, and then they'd have the money to sign someone really good.
I see.
So here's the thing about a company like this: $237 billion in revenue. I don't know what the actual profits are off that, but probably quite decent.
Operating income apparently 2023 was $33 billion with a B. So
they got some cash.
They got some
floating
cash
around. They put 10 million, 20 million, 30 million into a cycling team. Like, these are rounding errors for this company, right? Like, these are tiny numbers for this company. So why not put your foot down and say, we're going to do 75 million, still basically a rounding error, and try to actually have a French team that competes with UAE and Visma?
It's a good question. It's a great question.
Why not?
I'd love to know the answer.
Why basically throw away 20 mil, 30 mil when you could
for nothing?
For not nothing. They get to cut out cardboard cutouts of riders and put them in gas stations across France. That's a useful thing to them. I'm sure they're getting some of their marketing value out of it. But yeah, they haven't won much, right? No. Maybe they sort of tried to do this when they were like, oh yeah, we'll get Peter Sagan back in the day. That didn't work out really so well. I don't know. That would be the pitch I was making if I was one of these team owners. I would be like, listen, you could spend 25 million to be relatively anonymous at the Tour de France, or you could spend 55 million and maybe not win the thing, but we could go buy a bunch of incredible riders. We'd probably win. We'd be almost guaranteed to win stages. We'd get somebody in the top 5. We could do lots of these things. That would be my pitch anyway. So
maybe that's what Ineos have pitched to Total Energies. They're like, we've got the riders, just we can have your logo, save you the cut out the middleman,
and you'll get media coverage with that team too, because we all love to cover that team. So
we do well in English language media in particular. Yeah. So the downstream effects of this. So that's the sort of upstream money stuff, right? The downstream effects of this. They're just kind of a long time coming. The French have been struggling for quite some time now. We've got Romain Bardet retired. Thibaut Pinot's already gone. The kind of next crop isn't quite there yet. Lenny Martinez is sort of thereabouts, not racing for a French team. Who's the other one? Oh, Paul Seitzas, who's inbound but not racing the Tour de France, still 18, 19 years old. And then we found out that David Gaudu and Benoit Cosnefroy are both not racing the Tour this year. So 2 of the other big names are just out.
Yeah, Benoit Cosnefroy hurt his knee in the Tour de Suisse, so he won't be going to the Tour, which is a shame. And then David Gaudu gave a weird sort of interview, or a weird quote in L'Equipe. I don't know if it was another. Oh no, he announced it to AFP, so the French press agency. On Thursday morning, that he wouldn't be participating in Tour de France. The quote is, "Given my current level, I was transparent with the team. In any case, they have my values, my data, and so we decided together to skip the Tour this year." Which maybe was a together decision, but yeah, maybe not.
I mean, the translation is, "I am not fast at the moment." So what's the point?
I mean, same, David.
Yeah, true too. Yeah, me too. I feel you.
He's coming off a Giro. A fairly anonymous Giro, finished 66th overall, didn't get a top 10. So now he'll do the Vuelta, I guess. Yeah, so that could be fun for someone.
It feels like kind of a pretty far cry from what was it, 2020 that or 2021 that Julian Alaphilippe was like on top of the world. Tour de France seemed like he might even win the thing.
Yeah.
Winning world championships.
Well,
French cycling was at a high, and that wasn't that long ago.
Well, even 2022, David Gaudu finished 4th overall, and then he went straight on to Twitch and was live streaming about how, how rubbish everyone else was compared to him, or just like explaining how he managed to finish 4th. Like he was on top of the world.
Yeah.
And it's all come crashing down for our beloved horn dog, as Ian says.
Well, that
so
was my
not fun.
reference in the intro there, which I did steal from Ian Treloar, which was that we'll have. He says this is on Discord. He dropped this little note in when somebody said that David Gaudu would be out. His response: "We'll have to find some other French horn dog to keep an eye on the antics of this July." So we will be keeping a close eye out for a new French horn dog.
Can you, just for the people who, I feel like this has been referenced enough times that lots of people will know why, but there's going to be people who don't know why you're calling him that, and I think it's worth maybe a quick.
He loves making out with his girlfriend outside the team bus at the tour while wearing the pair of them wearing one oversized T-shirt.
There you go.
They're both in. They're both in the oversized T-shirt. They were even doing this. You mentioned some of the early, like actually the COVID tour and things like that. Like they were even doing it then.
Yeah, they were.
Like just sneak the mask down and like they just
weren't
couldn't
social
stop
distancing.
themselves. They could not
You
stop
can't beat love,
themselves.
Caley. You can't beat love. Love always wins. It always
Love
finds
always
a way.
wins.
My nomination for Gaudu's successor is Valentin Parrot-Pantra, and that's not just because barely any Frenchmen have been announced for the tour yet, but just a thought.
The aforementioned Alaphilippe actually looked pretty good at the Tour de Suisse, so I don't know. Maybe we're still going to see something where he bounces back and is good again.
Yeah, I think he's transcended that status though. But yeah, I pray that he is good again.
I'm just looking down the start list that we've got for the tour so far, which granted is not complete. There are very few Frenchmen on this start list. Like, okay, so Groupama is full of Frenchmen, but like Cofidis only has one listed, Benjamin Thomas, of the 5 riders that they've got slated for the tour so far.
Yeah,
like it's bad times. It makes you. I don't want to step back into governance chat because we do enough governance chat, but all this stuff about one cycling and all these other things, and we're always sort of like ASO is sort of they're preventing the sport from moving in the direction it needs to move. But if you are ASO and you care about French cycling and you that's your primary mission beyond making money, you can kind of see how you'd want to just hit the brakes a little bit and let some of these French teams like catch up and try to build a little bit of momentum and things like that. It starts.
They haven't really shown much impetus for doing that though. Like if I'm ASO, I don't have a whole lot of faith in them to do it. I mean,
Decathlon?
Yes, we've seen. I don't know. Yeah, like I'm thinking of the successes that we've seen in recent years, and they're like individual stage wins, and those are celebrated like they're much bigger than that. And so I don't know if there's much hope. Kevin Vauquelin, looks good right now. Maybe he's their guy who's going to get some tour stage wins for them. But like again, he's not going to win. He's not going to be on the podium of the Tour de France.
Victor
right?
Lefay is going to ride back into town atop a noble steed. And
to get a stage win, maybe, right? Like that's the peak of what they're doing right now. It's sort of a shame.
Yeah, but if you don't have the Grand Tour winner, you don't have the Grand Tour winner. So you might as well show some stage wins. Anyway, I think that's enough. We're going to be talking about French cycling for the next month. So we just wanted to drop that in there because it's I don't know, it's simultaneously concerning and not. Like I think Total Energies, the fact that they are going to stick with that team in some capacity, at least through 2026, is good. Emmanuel Hubert certainly has an uphill battle ahead of him to replace Arkea and B&B. B&B just seems to be quite flighty in what it wants to do sponsor-wise. Remember, it was like briefly going to go join this team, and they were going to have a huge budget, and they were going to get
the Cavendish team.
A Cavendish thing, and all these sort of things, and then that all sort of fell apart. And so whoever the marketing manager over at B&B is needs to settle down a little bit, just pick a team and stick with them. Anyway, that's enough.
We're staying at B&B. We're staying at 2 B&Bs.
We've got a couple B&B hotels. That was one of the strategies this year. The hotel strategies was to get more chain hotels, which means a little bit less French flavor and a little bit more checking in after 8:00.
and getting
which
work
is
done.
generally a good thing. Getting actual
Standardization
work
is
done.
good.
Yep. Should we talk about Lance Armstrong?
Yes. Did you? I
Lord.
hope the listeners noticed that we
have to?
We didn't sandbag. We didn't sandbag the show, but we're like, we can't open on Lance Armstrong. We got
It's probably for the best.
We got to give someone else a peace offering
Yeah.
first. Lance Armstrong.
15 minutes
him?
of French cycling chat is for the real ones out there. Like that is, come on.
If you don't deserve, what's the phrase? If you don't deserve us at our French cycling,
You can't
15-minute chat.
handle us at our worst, then you don't deserve us at our best, or something like that.
But you don't know.
Can't
You don't
handle
deserve
us.
either. You don't deserve either.
If you can't handle us
can't
at
handle
French
either.
cycling, you don't deserve us at Lance Armstrong.
There we
Yeah,
go.
kind of. Yeah. Anyway, so George Hincapie is the figurehead of a new American pro team that's coming called Adventure. What is it?
Modern
Adventure. Have either of you two watched Peep Show? No.
No.
Okay. Here's one for the Peep Show heads. Modern Adventure Pro Cycling sounds like the publishing company that Mark Corrigan gets his book published out, which is called British London Publishing. It sounds like a Ponzi scheme, and I'm sure it's not. I like how they said they're going to bring back American cycling when there's already 2 American World Tour teams there, but maybe they're not American enough for them.
I mean, to be fair, as much as I like both of those teams, they're not especially American. Like they,
EF's
Yeah.
pretty American, I'd say. No?
Well, and the like bike racing within the country itself is definitely road
That's
racing
the
within
real
the country
problem,
itself is pretty dire
Okay.
at the moment.
But
Yeah.
the interesting thing here for people who, aren't into who don't really care about like as a new team, is that on the jersey there could be spotted a logo for the Move podcast, which is the podcast that George Hincapie is on with Lance Armstrong, where they talk about bike racing in between their adverts for all sorts of potions and tricks to do something
like
to your body.
most podcasts other than this one.
Yeah, which is a shame because I'd like to try being swole like once.
We have too much hair as well. I feel like those you generally have a lack of hair.
Okay,
and a
so
lot
you're
of
saying
muscle.
give it 20 years. Okay, yeah. So then on the website as well, it says how the Move is a partner for Modern Adventure Cycling, which is again terrible. So many terrible bike team names coming out of the woodwork these days. So saw that, got on the old email to not. I didn't presume it'd be George Hincapie replying, but apparently he was looped in to provide the answer to why Lance Armstrong, or at least Lance Armstrong's company that he definitely majority owns, or he's the figurehead for the podcast. Let's be clear,
It's his
not,
podcast.
It's not George and Lance's podcast. It's
No.
Lance and then the sorry people all sitting around his feet listening to, as they always have done, listening to whatever he wants to talk about. So George replied when we asked about like why Lance could do it while being banned, because he's banned for life from cycling. George said, "I'm part owner of the podcast along with Lance. I saw it as an opportunity to promote the team through these channels and gain more support through that outlet, as we have big viewership during the tour. No other affiliation beyond that with Lance," he's referring to there. "Looking forward to a great show this year, talking about the sources." Like, that doesn't really answer the question of like, did the UCI not, did they not see the Move on the list and be...
Well, here's the thing for me. I don't care what Lance Armstrong gets up to in his day-to-day life. I don't really care. I don't care what George Hincapie gets up to in his day-to-day life. I think that what was missed, and a lot of the comments suggest that this was missed in your piece that you wrote on this, Johnny, is the fact that the only reason it's really a story for us is because Lance Armstrong is banned from associating with cycling in any sort of organized official way.
Yeah.
And the UCI clearly doesn't keep a super close eye on this because we've been the one to notice multiple times. And like, it's not like a gotcha thing. It's like he's banned, and it wasn't us that banned him. It was the UCI WADA that banned him, and so therefore, it's sort of worth chucking the question out there: does this fall afoul of that ban? That was really our fundamental question here, because.
And he actually there's a press conference last week. And he was asked about it, and said in no uncertain terms that Lance wouldn't be involved.
Yeah,
he mentioned that they'd be promoting it via the Move. He didn't actually say sponsored by the Move, which is the website makes it seem actually sponsored by. But he said Lance wouldn't be involved. So I think they're aware that they can't really say that. They can't say that he's involved, but they're gonna.
So-
I think they're probably just gonna try to see what they can get away with. And then
sure.
if UCI comes down on them and says, no, you can't have the move on your jersey or whatever, then they'll probably just not have it. But I think until that happens, I think they're just going to roll with it.
But the move could talk
So-
about this team all they want. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no ban on media association like in that way, because that's what we found out with Lance's podcast being on the on the Peacock app during the tour last year.
Yep.
But then Hincapie sent another email saying that the UCI registration process is still underway, so they're not even a fully signed on pro team yet.
Right.
And that all sponsorship arrangements are part of that review. And then this is a bit weird. He said, we've been fully transparent about the structure and are working with our legal team to ensure everything meets their requirements. So saying they're transparent about the structure means they've shown supposedly that Lance isn't named in any of the documents, stuff like that.
Right.
But I mean,
Well, so yeah, part of the application process with the UCI is you list out, like, you have to do a bunch of things. You have to provide financial guarantees. You have to show that you actually have the money. You have to like literally show the accounts full of money, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you also have to list where all the money is coming from and the sponsors that are related to it. I think one of the questions for me is if it's an in-kind kind of relationship. So basically, it's like the trading media coverage, not cash. It's probably much like wider gray area is my guess. More broadly, I think in general, as a sort of like Lance ambivalent person, Hincapie ambivalent person, Hincapie's always actually been quite nice to me. And the fact that there are a couple of younger riders from the next generation that are directly involved in this. So Joey Roscoff and Alex Howes are both involved. And because American cycling is in this place where it could really use kind of all the help it could get, I think we can sort of hold two things in our head at the same time, which is, one, we'd like to ensure that the man who's been banned from the sport for life and who is also kind of an asshole and has done some reasonably terrible things to various people over the course of his career, that he stays at arm's length. I think that's a reasonable ask. At the same time, the rest of them have done their time and come back in a lot of the same way that a lot of other team general managers have done, that Jonathan Vaughters has done, that you could list them all, right? And so at that point, I think you kind of just you wish them well, I guess. Like I genuinely hope that this team can grow and do something interesting. They're talking about going to the Tour de France within 5 years. Great, another American team.
yeah,
in the
who
Tour de France.
isn't? Who isn't?
The thing is, you have to say that because otherwise, no one's going to give you any money, right? Like that has to be the plan. But even if they get close, even if if they get closer than a lot of the other operations that have come and gone, and given the people behind it and the connections that they have, I think that's likely. I think that's my perspective on it, which is just sort of, like I said, you can hold these two things in your head at the same time. You can kind of wish the team and its riders and a lot of the staff, you can wish them well. And you can also be like, well, there are rules in place around riders that have been banned for life, and let's make sure that they are actually followed.
So I first of all totally agree, and second of all, I feel like when I wrote the story that with the launch, there were a lot of commenters who were just down on the idea of Hincapie being involved at all, and a lot of those comments, the way that they were phrased, like led me to believe that a lot of people didn't really realize like Hincapie ran a team for like a decade.
Yeah.
So this is not some new thing where Hincapie's just coming out of the woodwork after hiding. Like he ran a team that was a pretty important part of the like American racing scene for quite a while. It was it was called Hincapie, it was called Haloesco. It's had a couple of different names over the years.
Tom's came through it.
Tom's came through that team, and
Friend
a bunch
of
of other a bunch of riders who were like the best American riders, or maybe the second best American riders for quite a while, came through that team. Some of them are now going to work with Hincapie again, like Robin Carpenter, or you know, like the riders who.
Was it Joey Roscoff was on that team as well?
Roscoff was on that team as well. Ty Magner was on that team. Like a lot of guys who were the biggest names at any given, I don't know, Tour of Utah or any given Philly Classic, which those are the races that were our bread and butter in the American racing scene, races that no longer exist. But they were all a lot of these riders were on Hincapie's former team. So it's not like this is a brand new. The idea of sponsoring a team is a brand new thing for Hincapie. He's run a team before. The team was a pretty important part of the American racing ecosystem. Did a lot of good things, and some good riders, like again, Tom's is the big one for us that we like, came up through this team. So yeah, I think we've already seen a Hincapie running a team actually, can be an important and useful part of the American racing ecosystem. Hopefully, we get that again, especially now. Last time he ran a team, not that long ago, because the Hincapie Racing Squad folded a couple of years ago. There were a few American teams at the continental or pro-continental level. There were multiple races, UCI, just second-tier UCI races that American riders could go to. Now, none of those things are true anymore. There's like Novo Nordisk is the only second division team around, and they don't really race very frequently in major races. There's none of those big stage. Tour of Utah's gone. The Colorado race, whatever you want to call it, because there's a new one every couple of years, gone. Tour of California, gone. So hopefully, we might maybe see a little bit of a revival if we get some young American riders on a team like this, and I think there is a chance for that to work out, even if Tour de France he said 5 years at first. Then they sent out a press conference and said 6 years, but the press release also said by 2032. That is 7 years away. So whatever the changing window,
7 years, you say?
Yeah,
7.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Conspiracy.
Whatever the changing window the tour seems like a hard sell. But in any case, at least maybe we get some revival and interest of American cycling. Hopefully,
there's this funny dichotomy, which is that to get a team off the ground in America, the associations that they have are probably quite useful.
Yeah.
Right? Like having Lance around, having George around, having these other riders around. That's quite useful for pulling in money in those relationships that they have. For getting to the Tour de France, if that is the end goal, it suddenly becomes detrimental. Because ASO is not going to give a wild card to a team associated with Lance Armstrong.
Well, yeah. And also, a lot of young riders, I think, are probably maybe hesitant to come up through that if they have other options.
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe. Like I've talked with riders about this quite a lot in terms of like riders that rode for like Trek Livestrong back in the day and things like that, and they have quite a different perspective on it. I think that they were somewhat insulated from the era prior, and they see these individuals for sort of like on a personal level, which is really really quite different. Because the other thing that's interesting to me is just sort of how all these different riders, if you take the riders that were part of like the Reason decision back in, 2011 or whatever, 2012, and the riders that were given those 6-month bans, the Americans that were given those 6-month bans, U.S. Postal crew, basically, and the different kind of tacks they've taken and directions that they've gone, and therefore how they have been received by the wider public. So like Christian Vandervelde, for example, is an NBC commentator these days, and I think generally viewed quite, at worst, neutrally, right?
He did his time in the Peloton studio.
He did his time in the Peloton studio, indeed. And then you've got like anybody who kind of stayed closer to Armstrong, like Hincapie certainly did, is very much viewed somewhat more with somewhat more suspicion by a certain portion of the cycling audience. And you kind of have this spectrum, and it's basically like how far did you get from Lance, and therefore how quickly could you sort of like rehabilitate your image, but also, like I said, you kind of leave behind these opportunities that being associated with that guy provides you. So I'm really interested to see what happens here. That's what it comes down to.
I've been hearing some conspiracy / fan fiction theories around what may be the potential grand plan behind this move, but I think it has to be trust tree material because it's quite off the reservation.
After dark. Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
We'll do even more opinions in After Dark. I think we can kind of wrap that up there because again, I'm intrigued to see what happens. People have at various times accused me of being an Armstrong apologist, accused me of being an Armstrong hater, and
Caley.
What I really try to be is the Don Draper. I don't think about you at all. I
just like it when he pops up. I've written 3 Lance Armstrong stories, I think, in the past few years, And it's always when he pops up around the Tour de France, almost trying to like test the waters and like maybe open the door a little bit to see how it's received and if anyone notices. So I think it's just interesting to keep track of like these obviously very calculated moves, ironically, that he's making.
Yep. He's nothing if not calculated. He's nothing. Like everything he does is PR.
On that note,
calculated.
I know we want to wrap this up, but just to back that up, one person who I think would agree with you is George Hincapie, because in the press conference when asked about the involvement, he said Lance wouldn't be involved. However, I think he's one of the smartest people I know, so I'm definitely going to ask him for advice. So Hincapie agrees with you. Lance, smart guy.
Duh.
Oh, man.
That's great. It's going to be fun.
It'll be fun to watch, and like I said, I think the fact that there are some younger guys. I say young guys. Alex is the same age as me. We're neither of us are young anymore, but we're younger than Lance and George. So, yeah, the fact that there's some other guys involved that are from a different era, I think, is a good thing. And those are the people that will probably have more direct contact with the athletes as well, which I think is helps folks out there feel better. I'm not sitting here I don't think anyone's sitting here being like, whoa, they're going to dope the riders because they did in 2001. Like, no one is sitting here doing that. In other, I guess, somewhat related news, Nike, they were the Lance crew, right? Until they dropped his ass, like right after he admitted on, was it right before or right after he admitted on Oprah?
Best ad ever. The Lance Armstrong Nike ad.
You're a Lance guy, aren't you, Dane? Deep down.
No, this is sarcasm, because the ad is what makes the ad so great is that the whole point of it is that he's not on anything. You got to watch this ad. If you
I've not seen this. I thought you were being sincere there.
Go look it up. Yeah.
Oh, great.
I'm on my bike.
Anyway, Nike is back in the peloton, it seems. In the men's peloton, at least, because it was it's already been doing some stuff with Demi Vollering in the women's. But at the Dutch National Championships, a Nike tick has been spotted on the rear wheel arch of the Visma Lease bike car, which is absolutely earth-shattering news. So yeah, along with Rabobank going back to Visma, so the companies feel like they can come back. Maybe, don't know. Yeah, probably a good thing.
Rabobank coming back is great.
Yeah,
I like
that. Apparently it's not going to be on the jerseys. There won't be any Nike ticks on the jerseys, but
leisure wear.
But Visma Lease Bike will apparently be announcing what it means ahead of the Tour de France. So set your phone alarms for that or whatever. Dane, leisure wear, I would imagine, and I imagine you'll be able to buy it all from the Visma Lease Bike online store. So get your Euros ready.
And this does feel like a Nike Benelux, not Oregon-based thing going on. Much
the original
like the
Oregon thing in the Netherlands or something, yeah.
Is there an Oregon in the Netherlands?
I don't know, probably. I don't know.
Is there an Oregon in England somewhere? Where do we get that one?
Good question.
That's a good question.
But yeah, that's fun. Fun news. The Nike tick is kind of good, I guess. I mean, that's what you're told from the day you were born until the day you die, isn't it? That you're made to like the Nike tick, despite all the sweatshop stuff. So good vibes. Just trying to. I'm covering. I'm padding. I'm filibustering while Dane finds out where Oregon is from.
Oh, I've got it. No, I figured that out.
Oh,
I
sorry.
It's based on the French word for hurricane.
Is it? Do you get hurricanes in Oregon?
I don't know.
Did you just ask ChatGPT that? Because that sounds wrong.
I'm looking at a page. It's got like 87 different options for where the hell the name comes from.
The origin of the name Oregon is uncertain. No, this is a Google AI overview. When I just Googled it, because now this is what it gives you, right? It gives you this thing that may or may not be true, which is just great. I love it. It's exactly where I think the internet should go. So it's probably wrong. Widely believed to stem from a written document by Major Robert Rogers in 1765, who used the term Oregon, to refer to what is now the Columbia River. One theory suggests it's derived from the French word ouragan, meaning hurricane. Ouragan. Possibly referencing the strong winds of the Columbia River. Other theories propose Native American origins.
Speaking of that
Good
Google AI overview, good tangent. Now, I'm going to bring us kind of back around before we end the section. I had a run in with the Google AI a couple of days ago when I was writing the Lance Armstrong story, trying to find the previous piece I wrote about NBC. So typed into Google, Jonny Long, Lance Armstrong. Seems like a safe bet, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what the AI overview said?
Oh yeah.
Jonny Long, formerly a cycling journalist, notably
man.
defended Lance Armstrong during his doping scandal. False, I was 15 years old or something. But later received a doping ban himself.
Oh, Johnny.
So it's so shit. It's so shit. Well, our jobs, I've never felt more secure about our jobs. And, you know, if you've got money in the stock market, take it out, because all of this AI, you know, implementation's not going to fucking work out.
Yeah. I don't have as much. It's not as
Dane, give us
not as
yours.
fun.
Google your name and Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, it's not as fun. Dane Cash, a sports journalist who has written extensively about cycling, including.
Oh, you got
coverage of Lance
sports
Armstrong.
journalist.
Yeah,
I
sorry,
got
Johnny. You're
former
a
cycling journalist. You got sports.
Yeah, actually it's nothing made up. It's while his provided search results mention Lance Armstrong and his involvement with doping and legal disputes related to cycling, they do not offer specific details about Dane Cash's relationship or direct interaction with him. So actually, this one's kind of correct.
But mine, I mean, I've reported extensively on Lance Armstrong because, unlike you guys, I was working in 2011, 2012, and et cetera, et cetera. Mine, yeah, I have an AI overview. It says I reported particularly regarding Armstrong's admission of doping and subsequent controversy surrounding his career. Fretz's reporting has focused on Armstrong's, particularly the context of the thrift drug Triple Crown scandal. Does you guys remember what that is?
No.
No.
Also, the photo that they put up is not me and Lance Armstrong. It's me and my friend Chris Crosby. I don't know. Who lives in Krusty Butt. So
Classic.
Classic. So the thrift drug Triple Crown. Is this where this podcast should go? Yeah.
Maybe save it for save it for After Dark.
Should we save it for After Dark? Okay, we'll save the thrift drug Triple Crown controversy for After Dark. This is so long. I vaguely remember what this is even about. I think I spent like 2 months of my life working on this particular story. Anyway, where were we? Nike's back, but probably just Nike Benelux, which is way less interesting than Nike proper. But still, cool, great. Maybe we get some shoes again. They made sweet shoes, or DMT made sweet shoes. They put their logo on. I think we should take a break, and when we come back, we got a little transfer rumor roundup, and I think that's it for the B block. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Let's do a little transfer rumor roundup. So technically, nobody can transfer until August 1st.
Nope.
Realistically, in reality, everybody ignores this. It's irrelevant, right? That's not really true.
You don't want to be.
They just talk.
They sign the deals,
Yeah.
without telling anybody, and then they actually become official.
It's a game of musical chairs, and you
yeah.
don't want to be left standing up when the music stops. So get your shit correct.
Exactly.
Do you want to round up?
Before we do get started, tip of the cap here to cycling's
Fabrizio Romano,
who's the soccer guy? Fabrizio?
Dan Brizio, Ben Mano,
Dan Brizio.
something like that.
That for anybody who doesn't follow sort of European football,
Adam Schefter, if you're into American sports.
Okay, so chapeaus suitably chapeaued for a lot of this information. Fred Wright and Jack Haig apparently out at Bahrain.
A business-friendly decision, perhaps. Fred Wright, obviously one of my favorite riders. I was instantly slightly terrified that maybe he's going to go to a team that not makes him harder to love, maybe makes it harder to be pals. Not really pals, working pals.
Makes him harder to access.
Yeah, not even that really. Yeah, maybe like an Ineos would cause me some strife. An Israel Premier Tech as well, maybe would just be, a bit of a thorny one. But apparently, Fred Wright's on his way to Q36.5, which is fun. He can go be a research scientist. He can be buddies with Tom Pidcock and also get to race for himself a bit, which would be fun. Not sure where Jack Haig's
Yeah.
going. I mean, we could ask him, but that's a bit impolite. And then Attila Volta from Visma is apparently going in to like take up the spaces that those guys have vacated.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a closer relationship with Jack because he does a podcast for us, but we try to separate those things. So we'll rely on D'Ambrosio. Ben
Did you actually say his name, by the way? It's Dan
Yeah.
Benson, but I don't think you. I
You
feel like
did.
you just said the,
Yeah.
No,
the
I
portmanteau.
said his name.
Oh, you
I
did.
said his
Okay.
name.
Other one, Sam Welsford is going to Ineos because they didn't get their fill of an Australian sprinter this year with Caleb Ewan.
Yep.
Well, they
Well,
didn't
they
get
did,
their
but
fill
then
there.
they
They had a
gotta
little
replace him,
taste, and
like,
then the
immediately.
plate got whipped away
Yeah.
from them.
Yep.
Now they want more.
They're like, yummy.
And then Olav Koy is leaving Visma for Decathlon L'Oreal, and maybe Tish Benoot is going to Decathlon L'Oreal as well. So a lot of riders leaving Visma, which is slightly strange.
Well, Decathlon decided they wanted to be a sprint team. They got a sprinter, but then he didn't get them the wins they wanted. So it kind of makes sense. They would go out.
And Koy's been
That'd be Sam
looking.
Bennett,
Koy's
for
been
those who are
looking
not.
for a move for a while because he doesn't get a look in at the tour really. So
Yeah.
a few moving plates, shifting sands, and then we get to
Is Decathlon L'Oreal interesting?
maybe.
We don't want to talk too much about Unchained. That team gets a ton
I
of
think
love.
they
and
have the
Unchained drops
possibility
in like a
of
week.
being interesting going forward. If they get a GC
Yeah.
guy, then yes, they're officially interesting.
I think they've generally been interesting for the wrong reasons on that show. But I've been
Yeah.
interested in their storylines, but it's usually been not
Like
good. For
Bahrain, they could.
I mean, we can kind of talk about it now because the review embargo is Friday.
Yeah, but
which
we
is when this
recorded a whole
right,
podcast series about it, so let's try and.
So go listen.
Yeah.
I would say that Decathlon
true.
could probably aim to be as good as Bahrain, but maybe more interesting because Bahrain are just a bit blah, aren't they? It's like I don't feel any sort of way about that team.
Well, yeah, I mean, they kicked out the guy that started the team and worked there for 30-something years, Vincent Lavenue.
Yeah.
They booted him in August of last year. And they are now in this sort of like trying to be less romantic French about everything. And I think they're interesting. I'm going to put them in the interesting bucket because I'm just intrigued to see what they do and whether they can sort of weather this transition from like Vincent Lavenue vibes-based bicycle
I
cycling.
mean, he's still there, right? Like he.
No, he's gone.
No,
He
he's
got
fully shit-canned.
real proper shit canned.
Yeah. He's gone. And it's Dominique Seriez who's the CEO over there, and then there are like Julien Jourdi, who anybody who's watched the previous two Unchaineds, that you'll recognize that name as the director.
Stephen Barrett.
Stephen Barrett's still there. I think at some point, maybe this is an off-season thing. We could do it. We could do a show on whether teams are interesting or
think
not,
so.
and we could talk about why. But I would put them in the interesting bucket, at least.
They'll be chuffed to hear
and I
that.
think the L'Oreal deal is very
Yeah,
interesting.
but
I'm
L'Oreal.
sure they will. Yeah.
There we go.
Très bien. Could we do a? Can we do a sprinter form check here? I'm intrigued by this. So, Dane, you wrote this story this week.
We can do this. Yeah.
Let's do this. It won't take very long because there's like 3 sprint stages in the entire Tour de France this year. But
I think it's like 5, but okay.
all right, I have looked through it. Like almost every single one has some kind of like stage is normal stage, flat, boring, nothing, and then like fuck you, Cat 4, 20K from the finish. Like just almost every single one has something in there that is going to make it slightly difficult for.
Yeah.
There's like 2 pure sprint stages, and the other 3-4 are like that.
Could be,
where like
yeah,
something
could be
weird could happen, right? Nonetheless, the sprinters are going to take the yellow jersey in a week's time, just over a week's time, because stage 1 is one of the pure sprint stages, Lille to Lille, start and finish in Lille. And it's pretty straightforward. And so I think it's worth doing a little sprint form check because basically what we're talking about is who's going to take the first yellow jersey of the Tour de France. And Dane, who's at the top of your list there? Who's the A group?
Yeah, I broke them down into tiers over at escapecollective.com, which you should check out. Head over, read the story. But I've got a sort of tier list, and the top tier for me, and I think for a lot of people, I don't think I'm breaking new ground here. You're looking at Tim Merlier, you're looking at Jasper Philipsen and Tour de France debutant
Ooh.
Jonathan Milan.
Hmm.
All of whom have reasons that you might think that they would be the top dog in the sprints, and then
Benny
all of
Girmay
whom-
erasure.
I am sorry to Benny Girmay. He's mentioned in the story. I gave him a photo quite high up.
Erasure.
I put him in the second tier at best because he has not been much.
He wasn't
Yeah.
last year either.
I don't know. I feel like going into the last year's tour, he was at least, I don't know, he'd won a race.
That's
He
true.
had won 2 races actually last year.
Yeah.
Anyway, Merlier, Philipsen, and Milan. Merlier is the one who's like maybe the most in form, and I think the biggest thing that gives me pause with Merlier is more just that like he's 32, and you would have thought that he could have, been the best sprinter for many years already, and he hasn't been. But maybe that's not a knock on him entirely. I think a lot of people think that I'm being a little harsh by saying that because he continually is on teams that have left him out of the tour. But he's been great this year. Looks quite fast. Jasper Philipsen, I feel like, is somehow underrated. Yes, Caley.
Question from the audience. Is it not a problem that he is also splitting his team with Remco Evenepoel?
I think it is a problem. I think it's not.
Merlier,
It's not as optimal as the situation in which Milan and Philipsen will find themselves.
Because I'm looking at that team for the tour, and I'm like, Valentin Parapantra, like renowned lead-out man.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
All 127 pounds of him. I think that like he has a couple guys. He has a couple guys to help out, but I guess so. Here's the thing for me. Talk Philipsen, and then I'll provide my opinion.
Philipsen, the other end of the spectrum is Philipsen has the lead out man deluxe that is Mathieu van der Poel.
Yeah.
I think they're going to take Caden Groves to the tour as well this year as another member of that train. So you'd think that Philipsen's going to have a great lead out. By the way, Philipsen's won 9 tour stages. I feel like people kind of don't really realize how great he's been because like last year he won 3 tour stages, and I think the fact that he got off to a slow start, got relegated, and like the story around Benny Girmay was so exciting, people kind of forgot that Philipsen kind of did go win a bunch of sprint stages. So he's there. And Milan as well will have a strong lead out. Simone Consone, I think, is a really great lead out rider. Milan has shown he can be unbeatable when he's on a good
I
day.
just realised I spent the whole of the Unchained podcast saying that Philipsen won 2 tour stages last year. So there's my nightmare fuel for the week. Sorry, I cut you off.
There you go. Corrections corner.
Corrections corner for those who listen to that.
So, my thoughts on these 3 before we get to the Benny erasure. So, I think Merlier is the fastest, right? I think that the form would suggest that he is the fastest sprinter of that group right now. Philipsen has the best lead out and the Tour de France history. He won't be scared. He's won plenty of tour stages. He knows he can do it, and we know how important confidence is. And Milan is a little bit more versatile, right? Like, remember we were talking about Milan for Milan San Remo. In the same ways, Philipsen's pretty damn versatile.
Philipsen too. Philipsen has some, yeah.
But Milan has shown that he can be certainly more versatile than Merlier. And so I think it's a really interesting race. Like stage 1 is its own thing. Okay, that's a pure sprint stage. That's going to be who's fastest. If I was going to put money on somebody, and I don't, but if I were to do so, I'd probably put it on Merlier for that opening stage. But like I mentioned sort of in the intro there, the rest of the tour is just chaos. Like 1, all these stages have little lumpy finishes in them. 2, the first 7 days, they don't get more than like 50 kilometers away from the coast the entire time. So at some point, you're going to have echelons and crosswinds, stuff like that, almost guaranteed. Every day, no, but at some point, you're gonna get that, right? So I think that the sort of the versatility angle is a big one. And while I think Merlier is the fastest sprinter, I think Milan and Philipsen are going to win more sprint stages this tour.
Question from the audience.
And-
do you want to finish your point, Dane? I got a question.
Well, I actually had two points on that. Well, the first is it's a shame that that Unchained is going away because what you just said there, Caley, the rest of the tour is chaos. That's just perfect for getting clipped and turned into a soundbite for the.
It is.
I'm pretty sure Orla literally said that, like those words exactly.
We're in Unchained. You got to
twice.
listen for us.
Yeah.
And
then,
I'm
I
in
was
it.
just going to
I'm in the
agree with you.
I'm in the background of a couple shots, particularly on the Turgis stage. So anybody who can send me a screenshot of that wins $5 internet dollars worth absolutely nothing.
Johnny, what were you going to say?
Question from the audience. First of all, how dare you? But we're going to get to that with Binyam Gamai. Second of all, if you had to guess, gun to your head, how old Tim Millier was, I would not have guessed 32 years old. He doesn't feel like he's been around that long. I would also question who is his agent, because got him on Alpecin de Koning, or whatever it's called back in the day. 2 years later, they also signed Philipsen, and then they're like, okay, right, we'll move you out of there, and we'll find you a new team. How about 2023 Soudal Quickstep that's about to put everything behind Remco Evenepoel and his GC bid?
Yeah.
So that would be my advice for Tim Millier. If he gets a redo on his career in life, maybe get a different agent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Bad luck, bro.
Yeah.
But I still think I bet he wins a stage. And like I said, I still think
he won. And he has won a stage.
Yeah. For me, he's the hot favorite for stage 1, which, yellow
and
jersey.
And then Dane,
great.
he needs to go to the Vuelta and in order to unite the belts.
He's actually been, I think, to more Vueltas
he's been to one Vuelta and he only managed third in 2022.
Okay. Equal number of tours.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do think, to get back to the sprinters and this conversation, I'll unerase Binyam here.
Okay.
By the way, probably my favorite, maybe my favorite story of the last year's tour. I just haven't seen enough for him to think it's going to happen again. But as you point out, Caley, with the number of sort of interesting stages that are not just flat, that's where Binyam Girmay can shine. So there is a chance that if he can show us actually that he's in better form than he has shown so far, then maybe he will do quite well in this tour. Although there are other riders who are good at that too. Wout van Aert, by the way, is one of them. Mathieu van der Poel's one of them. Yeah. So there's competition.
No one told me that the stage 3 individual time trial of the Baloise Belgium Tour finished in a place called Ham, and I'd like to know why no one did.
We're looking at this. This is stage 3 here.
We're gonna do more of this on Monday. So if you were gonna pick a day to watch us on YouTube, I think Monday might be it, because as we go through and we talk about the route, I'm going to be pulling up lots of profiles and things.
It's
and what I've just pulled up,
the least worst Zoom call at your job of the day.
Exactly. And what I've just pulled up is one of the. I think this is stage 2, 3. Can't remember. I've just pulled it randomly out of my screenshots. But look at this. Look at this. This is basically indicative of what this first 8-9 days looks like. They all look like this. This is stage 4. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell because they all look like this. It's the if you looked up sawtooth in the dictionary, and this is the image that would pop up. Anyway, that is why I'm excited about this first week of the tour, is because it's just going to be like if we had peak Julian Alaphilippe.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I mean, he looked good at Swiss.
Yeah, but he's not if we had peak Julian Alaphilippe, we would have a redux of, was it 2019? We would have Julian Alaphilippe in yellow in stage 10.
That was the year. I think I said 2020 earlier in the show.
Right.
19, that's the year. Yeah.
He also
19 was the year.
won
19 was so good.
didn't he? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but 19 was the year. Looked like there was a chance we were like, wait, is he going to win the Tour de France?
Is he going to win the Tour?
So sad.
Yeah.
That's why
it's a shame that those times are gone.
All right, so full preview on Monday. We should briefly talk about so just the tier 2, just very briefly, because you did erase Binyam Girmay.
Binyam Girmay. Also, Dylan Groenewegen is the other guy in that sort of second tier. Groenewegen, I went back and I looked, and I was sort of shocked at how many stages he's won, because he never dominates the Tour, but he more often than not gets a Tour stage.
Well, he's won the Champs twice, isn't he?
Certainly once. Has he won twice on the Champs? Wow. Yeah. But he never really takes over. He's just there, takes a win, moves on with his life. And then you got Wout van Aert. Arnaud Delis, another interesting name. 2 years ago, it seemed like he was going to be the next big thing, and he's just his development has really plateaued a little bit. But he's got a little bit of versatility. He can actually handle a little bit of climbing, and he's very fast when he's in form. You just haven't really seen him in form this year. So hopefully we will, because the Lotto's invested a whole lot in him sort of being their guy.
Yeah.
And they said this week that actually they're still going to take him to the Tour. So yeah, he's up there as well.
I think that the winner of the green jersey is not necessarily going to be the sprinter of the Tour this year.
Yeah,
because of all the
Sagan
weird
situation.
Yeah, because of all the weird. I think we're going to go back to a Sagan situation basically, because of all the weird.
Pogacar's going to win
fun
it.
stages. I mean, seriously, like
Very
I'm looking at
possible.
this first week. I'm like, there's like 3 or 4 stages Pogacar could win in this first week. Literally, because he could win on Mur de Bretagne.
Yeah, I think he can and will certainly try. He's not going to. Other riders might be like, no, I don't really want the leader's jersey. I think Pogacar's like, if I can win, I want to win everything.
Well, yeah, because I don't want to spend. Again, we're going to talk about this more on Monday. But the purpose of this first 10 days is to make sure that Pogacar and Vingegaard are close to each other halfway through the race. Right, that's the whole point. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't actually know. I don't know if that's going to work. Like, I think Pogacar could take basically bonus seconds almost every single stage, and maybe some time. And I think it could be like 2 minutes by the time we get to Clermont-Ferrand and stage 9, I think it is. All right, let's cut off our little sprinter preview there. Dane will receive 40 lashings for his erasure of Benoît.
I'm sorry.
But or you'll look like a genius because he definitely he's a rider who sort of like runs hot and cold, right? There's no question about that, and he was very hot at last year's Tour de France. Whether he can do that again is I think a pretty big question. We're gonna take another quick break. When we come back, banned for studying. Welcome back, everybody. All right, Jonny, this is your story. Explain.
So this came out on Monday, I think. Danish 21-year-old Christian Kornum was handed a 2-year doping ban after testing positive for a substance that's found in the drug Ritalin, which you might have heard of. And he was tested after winning silver in the under-23 national road championships in Denmark. I presume last year maybe, and then this has all had an investigation around it. Ritalin is known to be an ADHD medication, but it can also be used as a study drug where I guess some students take it so they don't, get distracted. But I've heard sometimes that they do get distracted initially, and then instead of doing their work, they end up just cleaning their entire house or apartment because you get focused in on one thing. Anyway, so he, this poor Christian was doing an assignment with his fellow students. One of them offered him some Ritalin. Didn't think anything of it. Didn't realize it was on the banned list. Had never had any sort of education about what was and wasn't on the banned list, and then got banned for 2 years. So seems harsh, but slightly.
Well, you're also, yeah. You're not supposed to take prescription drugs that people hand you.
No, that's
randomly. That's also not great. Yeah,
I do like the way you described that, John. He just got handed it, and he just didn't really think anything of it, so he took it. I got handed some meth. I didn't think anything of it. I just took it.
I mean, I cooked it here for you, Dane. So you knew where it came from.
In the can, right?
But yeah, so that's this is a fun little
free range.
Wow, not fun for him.
The fact that he's young is a big part. It's okay. Well, that seems like
I'll have a lot more time for studying now because he won't be racing bikes, which is sad. Other couple of small little news items before we get to After Dark. No Tour de France for Theo Gegenhardt, who has been ill after the Tour de Suisse.
The world's
unluckiest bike racer. To have also won a Grand Tour, I think. I think he definitely sits at 1-1 in that competition. And then Kian Uterbrücker was hit by a driver who was reversing out of a driveway or something, and Kian went to hospital. They found no fractures to his release, so seems okay. He's also another guy who's been very unlucky recently.
Unlucky.
But I think that is all the news from this.
We were talking about him as a tour winner.
Yeah, do you remember the whole transfer saga thing? That occupied me for 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Very odd. Very, very odd.
And it turned out to not really matter because he's been very unlucky since. Unfortunately,
that's all the news in the witching week that is the pre-Tour de France week.
All right. So should we head to After Dark and talk about the thrift drug Triple Crown? Okay.
I also have I have a new rider game that can be ongoing, and I have a new Tour de France rider song. You know how we often find the songs that match rider names, like Sharon Van Anrooy with what's the Sharon Van Anrooy one again? It's the Beatles one. I can't remember. Sharon Van Anrooy, Ellen Rigby.
It's Eleanor Rigby.
I found another one of them, so I'll share that with the trust tree. Anyway, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Before we do head to After Dark, I need to mention a couple of quick things. One, next week is a free week
Oh yeah.
at Escape Collective. So normally, most of the site is paywalled because that's how we pay our entire staff and have a whole media company without annoying ads and other things like that. So next week, no paywall for all news stories. If you Google something and find it, and like there's still probably a paywall on there's definitely still a paywall on old stuff. But anything new going next week is free. That means if you are a member and you like what we do and you want to help spread the word, next week is the best week to share our stories with the world. So share them with a friend, somebody who might like what we do. Show them how nice it is to read on Escape Collective when you're not getting bombarded with flashy advertisements and all the sort of the rest. And yeah, take your favorite story next week and pop it over to a buddy. I think that's the request. We're also going to be making After Dark free.
Gonna have to
next
make
week.
it good.
Ooh.
The trust tree is going to be out in the open.
That's worrying.
So After Dark on Monday's show and the first couple episodes of the Tour Daily, which starts on Thursday, those are going to be available to everybody. So if you're listening on the free feed, you will get the full experience, mostly so you know what you're missing. So that's my first point. Second point, we don't ask you all to review us very frequently. The podcast, I mean. Whatever app you're on. We should do this more often, but actually right now is the time to do it. And the reason I say that is because it actually does make a difference in what gets surfaced when someone looks up like cycling podcast or Tour de France podcast or something like that, which maybe they're looking for during the tour. So obviously we get a big spike in sort of interest and traffic around the Tour de France. Right now is the best time all year for you to review this podcast. Give it 5 stars. Write in why you love it. And that will actually be super, super helpful in putting us in front of new folks in the next week or two. So take a moment as this episode wraps up. Review us. We'd really appreciate it. Obviously, 5 stars. Like anything less than that, I don't know what
I
you're
would
doing.
take 4. I would.
If you're a
Dane?
YouTube watcher, have we ever said you got to smash that like button? I
Oh,
don't know if
yeah.
we said that.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you got to smash that like button. Like and subscribe.
so
Like and subscribe.
please like.
Look at you guys. Look at you guys.
All right, with that, if you're not a member already, head over to escapecollective.com/join. Join us, because we are headed into After Dark to talk about the thrift drug Triple Crown.